we'll re-emerge with a presentation from David, or a video from David. Oh, this is looking good. Right. So I'd like to take this opportunity to hand over to David.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, quickly checking microphone is on, microphone is on. Hello, Helen. Hello, Paul. Hello, Suzanne. Hello, world. Thank you, I appreciate that. One huge relief already following what Helen and Suzanne have had to say. I don't actually have to rewrite my entire presentation, which is my first concern. I don't have to. I hope this will fit. But why should you take remotely seriously anything I have to say about this topic? Well, I'll give you 30 seconds. Suzanne, I don't read the slides, I promise. Okay, 20 seconds is enough. That's experience. What would make that expertise? I guess I checked with Advanced HE last week, and about 140,000 lecturers have gained accreditation against some branch of the UK PSF. So as well as a lot of effort, one or two things have happened as a result of all this work. So I hereby claim expertise in what I'm talking about. There's been reference in the chat to excellence. Like many people who joined in, I'm not a fan of excellence. I'm really not a fan of excellence as a basis for preparing and thinking about university teachers. Here's some of the reasons why. Again, time to read. I don't think excellence is a bad thing. I think it's just a terrible place to start when talking about teaching, and certainly when helping teachers to develop their expertise, for all those reasons on the screen and many more. So if not excellence, then where is a good place to start? Well, I'm a big fan of this. If I can advance the slide, I'm a big fan of competence. Here's why. Those last 5 elements about teaching competence, they're from a proposed higher education teaching standard qualification I wrote as part of a European project. Do you remember Europe? They were written 15 or 20 years ago. They didn't catch on. They didn't catch fire. I was told by serious academics from across Europe that they didn't do justice to teaching because they were too simple, and teaching was more complicated than that. As a student, I would have settled for teachers who did do those 5 things, who had those 5 competences. They're all capable of elaboration, as the bits in brackets say, but I'd settle for a teacher who could do those 5 things, but we might feel that wasn't enough. So what could we add to this account of competence to make it more attractive, more appealing, more useful? Here are a few suggestions. Again, read through those if you would. The values are taken from the CEDA teacher accreditation standard. Indeed, the CEDA professional development framework standard. I picked them partly because I helped to create them, and partly because they're not that different from the current UK PSF ones. Another possible plus to add on to competence is knowledge. They're a feature of the UK professional standards framework. I'm a bit concerned about knowledge in professional standards because they can act as a kind of magnet that they can pull all the attention. I won't read the bottom 2 bullet points to you, but they are why I have reservations, even about values, certainly about knowledge. And as has been said a few times already today, I will read one line from the slide: competence is not static. So what could drive change? What could make competence a dynamic? The account of scholarship is taken from some work Celia Popovich and I did in the book Advancing Practice in Academic Development, published 4 years ago now. I think those first 2 levels of scholarship, 1 and 2, are a pretty good add-on to competence. I think they take you from competence into scholarly competence. I think they sum up a lot of what's included in the standards and the values and the knowledge. I think that's a useful direction of travel. So, ending where I began with the title, I think this is compatible with what Helen and Suzanne have been saying. It's compatible with what others will be saying. I like the idea of expertise, but I think it's got to be grounded in competence, and scholarly competence sounds pretty good to me as a basis for a scholarly, an academic, a professional activity, teaching in higher education. Paul.
Sorry, just trying to turn my mic on there. Thank you very much for that, David. There's been some interesting discussions. So I think I would like to just start with one summary point from the discussion that Helen has brought up. It's interesting the points you make around scholarly competence. And Helen's brought up the role that what students think expertise is and excellence is in the classroom. And in relation to the previous presentation, I just wondered what you thought in terms of the students' perspective on what you've been talking about.
Students want their teachers to know stuff. I mean, there's a whole pathology behind that about teachers as a source of expertise and a source of wisdom and source of knowledge. I mean, that's a whole separate book. But I would think, and life's too short, I'll write it eventually. Students want their teachers to have some of the qualities that Suzanne's indicated to us. They want their teachers to know stuff. They want them to be friendly and approachable and adaptive and scholarly in the 2 senses of scholarship. In the first 2 senses of scholarship, I would imagine that students would be pleased if teachers were applying some of the considerable knowledge we have about what makes for effective learning in higher education. I also think, picking up again on Suzanne's and Helen's points, they would like their teachers to be reflective, dynamic, active, minute to minute, making adaptations to their practice according to, well, crudely, not so much according to what students like. I'm less concerned with what students like. I'm passionately concerned with what works. So I think it fits, I think it works, I think it's compatible, but I would, wouldn't I?
I'd like to also just ask one last question is around the role of competence as an individual characteristic versus a collective characteristic in terms of how we might combine competence and expertise. Expertise isn't something necessarily that is solely, if we think about academic projects, they are often the result of one or more than one person. I just wondered about that sort of individualistic role
Oh
versus
gosh,
a sort of shared.
this is the downside of the teaching standards, and I've been aware of this, and I've been doing this for a long time, but I've been aware of this right from the start. The quality of the teacher's teaching is not solely the responsibility of the teacher, and this is what I don't like about individual standards. How good a teacher can be is determined by the setting design. When we used to have classrooms, it's determined by the classroom setting. It's designed by the pedagogic principles and policies and strategies and the resourcing and all that kind of stuff. It's not enough to talk about the capabilities of teachers. Teachers don't teach in a vacuum. I know it's essentially a private act, but there's so much else which makes it possible for a teacher to be good or less good. And I think that I think the danger of teaching standards is that it thrusts all the responsibility onto the teacher. It mustn't do that. Part of the responsibility is on the students. I mean, they've got to do the work, for goodness sake, but a massive responsibility goes on to the university to provide an environment in which teachers can teach well, and an environment which rewards, encourages, supports teachers to do so. No, so the collective dimension is hugely important here, and individual teaching standards, I'm afraid, don't address that.
Thank you, David. I'm aware of time. It's coming up to 11 o'clock. To try and keep on time, we have